No, stop. We're on air. Right.
Oh, we're on air,
We need to stop making that joke, okay? What Asher is attempting to do is goad Roger Gewolb into saying something really, really bad. Okay, so we're joined now by Phillip Ullmann. Phillip Ullmann is a social entrepreneur and somebody who ran a huge business supplying workers to some of the big factories and warehouses, security workers, pickers and packers, etc., cleaners, and so on and so forth. Somebody who's turned away from that now, who's extremely concerned about the state of business and society. Well, look, we're going to be talking, Phillip, in general about business, but the first thing I wanted to ask you about was this. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, is saying that people who work from home are taking their children out of school. Look, why do you think that's happening? Is that because we've decided that we can't be bothered going into work anymore, long weekends, or is it because the education system's failed? It could be any of them.
To me, the focus would be on the educational system. To start fining parents to force them to send their kids to school isn't the correct approach. And we have an educational system, to me, that's dated, that hasn't been brought up to the current stage. And we need to look at each kid and recognise they're different. Not a statistic, so many are away from school on a Friday, and it's looking at it as a mechanical process. We're dealing with real kids.
That's a difficulty, isn't it? Because if I take my kids out of school, then effectively what happens is the school says, oh, you know, this is terrible, but you could be taking them to see Stonehenge. You could be, I mean, my brother takes his kid out to go to, say, an event in Parliament or whatever. I mean, I think that's a better way of educating them, rather than this top-down obsession saying you must learn parrot fashion.
Absolutely. It's treating it like a mechanical process. You're measuring statistic. You have no idea why the number has grown. But effectively, you need to look at each child, make sure the parents are working together with the school to develop the kids, to develop the skills, and not start fighting each other. So these parents are not sending their kids to school. I'm going to find them.
What's changed with parents? Because it used to be really serious that you went to school every day of your school life, and now it's not taken seriously. School, I mean, discipline at school, it's gone down with that.
If the father's home 3 days a week working from home, it changes everything.
Well, I think that's right. But the irony is, kids hated Zoom lessons, didn't they?
Yeah.
As you say, if the parents are educating the kids, homeschooling is something that's always been possible as well. So if the parents are doing something valuable, are educating the kids, I don't have a problem with it, as long as we make sure that the school is working with the parents to make sure that the kids are getting
good.
You're right. They missed seeing their mates.
Yeah, but homeschooling is rocketing because of concerns about the curriculum, because, you know, it started with reading and writing, you know, getting maths done and all this, and it's turned into, you know, telling them how to live their lives. It's turned into pushing the LGBT agenda. It's turned into transsexualism, all those things which, look, I think are just better for the home. You know, you should be the moral guidance to your child, not a teacher.
No, I agree with you. And what we should be doing is not measuring these arbitrary statistics, but actually working out why isn't that kid in school? Why do the parents believe they're better at home? And maybe it's because the education isn't up to scratch, rather than simply assuming the parents are at fault and they've got to.
Or maybe it could be better online. We've never really made the education system around it.
And if you look at the news last 48 hours, that's being reversed with schools teaching that stuff. Just like DEI and ESG is being scrapped by all the big corporations.
I mean, look, I don't want to sound like I'm being cruel to anybody, but I have to say to you, the idea that, and this has happened, although to be fair, Gillian Keegan is moving back from it. What we've turned around and said is, if your child decides to be a transsexual, then you will not be told. Right, and then you get the situation in Canada with Justin Trudeau, who turns around and says, if you object to your child doing it, you can be done for child abuse. I mean, this has turned into, what worries me is that school has ceased to be about education. I get that what we do today is out of date, but what they do keep up to speed with is the way of indoctrinating kids into their way of thinking.
The latest craziness.
But they'll notice, won't they, when their kid comes back with a hockey stick and a mini skirt on, even if they haven't told them that
well, I have to say, there's a right-on district of Wandsworth in London where I see boys coming home with skirts all the time. My favourite, by the way, misadventure of that was when a load of little boys in Edinburgh wanted to be able to wear shorts in the summer, and they all came in skirts as a protest. But of course, it's called a kilt in Edinburgh.
How do you know? How do you know? You sit in your car watching?
Yeah, he does that. He told you not to do that.
We do need to revisit the whole system, as Roger says, and fundamentally, look, the stage on the stage, a teacher standing in front of a class of talking to the kids, lecturing, has got to go. That kind of system has to go. We've got to move towards a more interactive, a dialogue between the parents.
Technology's changed.
The technology enables it to change the Khan Academy concept of flipping the classroom.
What struck me, most of us, Roger, I assume you went to school in America, but for us three, we did something very similar, even though we're different age groups. You did your options where you decided what O-levels or GCSEs you were going to do, but actually half of that was based on the idea that, what teachers we had for this and what teachers we had for that. Nowadays, the technology is perfectly available for me to do a course in Japanese as a school child by doing it down the line, by having the lectures online and by teachers helping locally. But we don't do that. It's still that lecture format.
Absolutely right. And what should happen is the actual lecture should be at the pace that a child needs to. You can't say to the teacher, stop, slow down. So if they're playing it before the lesson, they can actually slow it down to their own pace.
We're actually, with respect, talking about two completely different subjects. I mean, you're talking about how the educational format should change. That's really, with respect, nothing to do with this thing about not going to school on Friday.
Well, here's the question. Here's the question.
They may be conflated in some ways, but
here's the question: is the reason why kids are not bothering to show up because of the parents' working practices?
Daddy doesn't have to go, and I'm not going either.
It's just not taken seriously, school, like it used to. That's basically it.
I suppose that's right, but I think that actually the world of technology has moved things on.
Do we need school as much?
It's not meeting the needs of the kids, of the students, of the children. Otherwise, they'd go.
Philip, Roger contends that the kids would still go if it wasn't for the laziness of the parents.
No, I don't buy that. I think we need to look at it collaboratively. We have to look at the child as an individual, make sure that they get the education. If the parents aren't sending it, it's because they don't value it.
A lot of it's pointless, though,
isn't it? They send the kids, but they obviously don't value it.
You're inferring a daddy or a mummy who works from home however many days a week, which is their option from their employer or their own business or whatever, is lazy. You can't conflate.
They are lazy. They just sit at home in their kimonos, and sometimes they won't have anything from the waist down.
I know
an awful jacket on and do,
I know a lot of people.
I know. I've got my mate Duvet Dan, who I found
Duvet.
Well, because he's always in his duvet on the sofa, and I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I've got a meeting at this time."
Well, he sits there eating Pringles all day long,
and he just swinging the lead.
I have friends that work from home because they do really serious, deep work, AI and such. It's the only place they can think. So they like their 2 days a week at home.
Well, in that case, that comes back onto what Philip's saying, because actually, if you say the reason they're working from home is not because they're lazy, then maybe these kids are sat at home going, actually, I'm watching YouTube, educational stuff on YouTube, actually, I'm reading books, and the reason I don't want to go to school is because I think school's a waste of time.
Yeah, I'm sitting at home watching The Rime of the Ancient Mariner on YouTube, How's that working out for you?
But hang on.
Is that good?
Yeah, but when I was a kid, I did virtually nothing at school but like TV documentaries and got reasonable exam results as a result. So,
and a lot of education is pointless.
Despite
like
all the drinking,
chemistry, you don't use it in your whole life, do you?
Despite all the drinking.
I wasn't a heavy drinker when I was 10.
That helps them revise.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We're going to go to a break. We're going to go to a break now. But if Roger didn't agree with what Philip just said, he's going to love this humdinger, because we're going to be talking in a second about how we're going to change corporate Britain for the better, according to Phillip Ullmann. Back in a sec.
Fantastic.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould as Asher continues to goad Roger Gilwald into accidentally...
He's not falling for it anymore.
Into accidentally saying something. I'll tell you what Roger did during the break. Roger gave us an honest and frank appraisal of his views of double child murderer Colin Pitchfork, and Asher was trying to encourage him to say it on what I will tell you is that he agreed with the 96% of people who believed he should still be in prison. I don't agree with them, but I will tell you, I'm with the 4% who believe that Pitchfork shouldn't be in prison. But as I always say, there's more than one way to reduce the prison population.
I didn't say. I read a tweet that I got during the break from somebody who was quite...
Tell that to the judge, Roger.
Okay, so we're also joined by Phillip Ullmann, the social entrepreneur. And Phillip, just to remind people, though regular viewers have seen you before and readers of The Telegraph will have seen some of your articles, you're somebody who employed 100,000 people a year, and those were the low-paid jobs. At one point, you were the largest employer of immigrant labour in Britain, and you are now unconvinced by the way corporate Britain operates, and you want to make changes to make people much more responsible for the workers in their company. Why don't you tell us what that is?
Yes, essentially we allow company directors to run a company for the sole interest of the shareholders. Now that is a ridiculous concept when you think about it. There's so many people in the world, we've got the planet, and the law says you've got this group of shareholders, you can make decisions that only look after this narrow group and forget about everyone else, forget about employees, forget about...
You have to give regard to them, don't you?
You have to give... But that... What is due regard?
Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely. So you're allowed to make as much money as you want at the expense of everyone else.
But they can buy shares in a company, maybe not that one, but maybe another one.
The bottom line is employees can't. It's the elites. And effectively what we should be looking at is what the real purpose of business should be. We should be to look after other people, to look after the planet, but not to look after one narrow group. It can't possibly make sense.
But doesn't businesses looking after their employees make sense, doesn't it? From the, Cadbury's and when they saw looking after it actually pays dividends, looking after your staff. Yeah, but the bottom line is, why do the owners need to take huge amounts of money home? They don't need it. What we're living in a world when there's been huge inflation. As a result, the banks have now increased interest rates. So poor people who've got more to spend on food because the prices increase have now got the double whammy of bigger interest rates on their mortgage, and therefore they can't put food in. So why should the shareholders take more where the basic needs are not being met?
So you're proposing to alter Section 172 of the Companies Act to say what? It should be now profit, so it should be look after the shareholders and employees? Or?
No, it's simple. At the moment, they're called directors, the people who run the company.
Is it like the German system you want to go to, where the employees are on the board?
No, it's much simpler. The trouble with the system now is very complicated, and the layman doesn't. They don't understand what profit means. What does profit mean? I'm an accountant. I know it's arbitrary, and the typical person, the employee, doesn't understand the numbers. So they have no way of protecting themselves. So we have to create a system which actually ensures that we know what people's needs are.
Profit-related pay, is that what you're talking about?
No. It's much wider than that. It's saying that the purpose of an organisation is to build trust between the people running it and the people who are working for the company, who are providing labour, who supply it.
Japan do that very well. What do they do in Japan? Because everyone loves the companies that they work for, and they do these sort of...
They're just so compliant that...
And this country's making more cars than it ever has in its history, although not for, unfortunately, this country.
I'm talking about a radical rethink to build trust. At the moment, if you allow people to run a business in their own interest, in the interest of and not to factor in everyone's needs, how are you going to ever look after the welfare of society, of people, of the planet? Because it's not what people are trying to do. The government allegedly counters what companies do, but the bottom line is that everybody should be aligned to look after people and to look after.
But you do want to look after your staff as a company, because it makes sense, because once they've worked for you 20 years...
Do we?
Well, 10 or 15, 20 years staff is valuable for that company. If they go to a competitor, they're taking all that knowledge elsewhere.
But are you certain that those employees are actually earning enough money to put food on the table, are not getting hugely indebted,
that's all to do,
are not being going to be
they're not
kicked
paid
out
enough,
of their houses?
And that's why they're subsidised by us, the taxpayer, and it's also that's why we're getting all this massive immigration, because the big corporates want the cheap labour, and the working class are losing their birthright.
Absolutely. So the benefit system, for example, tax credits, allows employers to pay less. So
we're paying like schmucks the subsidy,
which means that money is actually going straight into the pockets of the shareholders.
The working class are paying taxes to do themselves.
Attacking me, Roger.
He disagrees with it. He disagrees with it, don't you, Roger?
What I was going to say is, if we change the Companies Act and we say that you have to look after both the shareholders and the employees, then you potentially bring some balance. But don't you risk the companies losing money?
No, it's, and by the way, it's not just those. It's not just employees. It's suppliers. It's everybody.
It's all the stakeholders.
It's all the stakeholders, and it's the planets as well. And that's what we should be looking to achieve.
I've said this to you before, Philip. I think it all sounds great, but to me, it's rather like listening to Keir Starmer. I mean, it's all fabulous.
That is rude.
Fabulous ideas, but I mean, what are you actually talking about? What are you actually going to do?
Well, Roger, hang on a second, Roger. Let me ask you this, right? So, Philip comes with this simple idea. Section 172 of the Companies Act, as I understand it, says the following: you have to look after the shareholders, but you have to take regard of the other side.
Stop. We've gone around this now 4 times in your conversation. Draft me the new 172.
We just have.
And then, no, you haven't.
I have.
No, draft me the new ones. Who are the stakeholders? What gets done for each of them? That's point number 1. You're actually not filling it in.
I am.
It's truth, beauty, and justice, and you haven't filled in the bubbles. That's number 1. Number 2,
he says he has.
It's easy. Well, you have
only one way to sort this out, and that's a fight.
Number 2.
All right,
Number 2. It's easy for you to say you've made 78 gazillion pounds,
I haven't.
and you're so rich that I'm feeling shabby sitting next to you. And you're sitting here wanting to do some good and put back, and that's very noble. But you know, the bulk of businesses in this country, Philip, are people who have mortgaged their home, work 37 hours a day, 12 days a week, okay? And if they don't watch every penny that they spend, every sou, if they don't tighten their belt, they're going to go out. There are 500,000 companies about to go to the wall thanks to this government. I mean, people cannot afford to do what you, with all your blessings, are talking about. So, A, you haven't sketched it out. B, it doesn't suit other people. And C, if you're going to go around talking about this sort of noble thing, you need to sketch it out for the bulk of people in business in this country.
You're saying he's an idealist.
Who, if they tried to do what you do, would go broken.
Okay. So let's unpick that. First of all, the allegation is that you make Roger look like a peasant. We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that.
Not hard.
We'll leave it at that. But actually, that's a reasonable point, isn't it? If we're going to make Britain more corporately responsible, we need the granular detail on how to do it.
Oh, there's no doubt. It needs to be set out point by point. I'm happy if you give me the time.
Yeah, go for it.
To come back week after. I can't. It's a lot of principles, and I have thought it through.
Bullet points, Philip.
Yeah, there's no question we have to...
5 if you're Sunak, or 6 if you're Starmer.
We have to revisit what the purpose of business is, and that's saying that Section 172 moves from directors to trustees, moves from having regard to actually looking after the interests of all the stakeholders listed. You have to look at the clause. That is very prescriptive.
Yeah, so just so I can explain this to people who haven't looked at...
What does looking after the interests mean?
Give me a second. Just to explain to those people who haven't read Section 172, it lists out a group of people, like employees, like customers and whatever, who need to have regard taken for their needs. You're saying that these people should be the directors should be as responsible to them as the shareholders.
What I'm saying is a strategic rethink of the corporate world, aligning it with the state. But then we have to then work out, 1 minute, how can we then start to give measures to ensure that people's needs are being met? And I'll be honest with you, profit isn't the number. Profit is fictitious, and so we need to look at people's needs. Do they have a home which is secure? Are they at risk of being booted out of the house.
I'm a private equity fund. I'm a venture capital fund. I'm a hedge fund. I'm an investor. You've just come to me with a business proposition, but there's no profit in it.
No.
So the reason I want to invest is because I like your jacket. You know.
No, we don't need you to.
It's a nice bit of schmatter.
Oh, you don't need investment.
No. Of course we do, but not from venture capitalists. No question about it.
Well, who are you going to get it from?
No, we have to build. Again, I'm happy to take you through stage by stage, but we have to revisit.
Well, wait.
1 minute.
Where's the dash coming from?
I'm explaining to you, because what you need to look at is what money is for. And first thing is, I would move away from profits, because profits can't be measured and no one understands profits. And
Philip, will you be my partner?
I don't think you get on.
I don't think we get on. I agree with that. With Ash, we wouldn't get on. But no, I'm happy to take you through. I can't explain it standing on one leg.
I'll tell you what I do want. I'll tell you what I do want to know about.
Yeah.
Because whatever you think about the proposal to alter 172,
yeah,
what we are concerned about here is the low-wage, low-skill economy. We've got to move away from that in some way, shape, or form, haven't we?
But it's much bigger than that, because effectively, money, which is the key, what you call investment, is not being used for the right purposes. I'll be straight with you. There's 4 things that you can do with money. You can use, which is effective money, which is created by the commercial banks to a large extent. You can either lend it for commercial or residential real estate, which actually causes inflation. Now you'll say, wonderful return for the VC because they're getting return on capital.
You only got just about a minute, so...
Okay, but the point is that for the person looking to buy a house, he can't buy a house. The young people can't buy houses. Yeah. So that is
what's the second one?
The second one is financial assets, which is stocks and shares, which means that the layman can't buy those assets. Yeah. The third one is consumer goods, which creates consumer price inflation. Yeah. That is not productive. Yeah, money should be used to meet needs, to create businesses that create meaningful employment. We're not doing it, so we have to look at the whole banking system, amongst other things. I have thought it through, but I can't explain it.
Number 4, you haven't done number 4.
Philip, I have to say...
meaningful employment, that's actually when you aim to create... That's number 4, when you actually create...
You should have done them in reverse order.
I have to say to you, Philip, I congratulate you sitting next to Roger Gould.
Now we're going to have the fight in the news, and when we're back, we'll tell you who won the fight.
So I have to say to you that we will watch this project with interest. One of our texts says, basically, Philip's a communist.
No, I'm not.
No, he's not. No, he's not. But
I'm not.
Believe me, he's done well in business. Believe me.
That's why he doesn't like profit.
It's okay. We're going to say goodbye to Phillip Ullmann. See you next time. Roger Gould is going to stay with us, and Chloe Dobbs is going to be back. You can get in touch with the show 0344 499 1000. Calls just charged at your normal rate. WhatsApp us on 0344 499 1000. If he was a communist, he'd want the state to do it, whereas actually wants the public to do it.
Well said.
So there we go. Okay, we'll be back just in a couple of moments.